As the sun rose in the east, so did these protesters. First in New Zealand and Australia, occupying banks and energy companies and blocking roads during the rush hour.
We absolutely apologise to anyone who is personally inconvenienced by our actions. We don't want to be here. We don't want to disrupt people's lives. What we want is for the government to act.
I'm never going to be opposed to someone being able to express their opinion and express their voices, but in blocking people from able to go and do their day-to-day job doesn't necessarily take us any closer to the climate action that they're calling for.
Later, European protesters took to the streets of capital cities, including Berlin, Dublin and London. A few hundred in each location, but they were determined. In central London, they occupied a bridge near Parliament. Within earshot of number 10 Downing Street, they staged this sit-in. Police made dozens of arrests. The demonstrations were almost all peaceful.
We're here to really push home this is an emergency. You know, we only get one planet, and so we're here to try and defend it.
I don't want to live in a world where we're going to be climate change refugees. That's what scientists have predicted will happen if we don't do something faster, and it is happening right now.
These activists are in different countries, but they share one message and the same symbols of protest. As the name Extinction Rebellion implies, they say the planet is running out of time in the face of undeniable climate change. And there is growing anger at the lack of action taken by governments all over the world. It's the same message as that of teenage climate activist Greta Thunberg, who is an inspiration to many. At the end of last week, she was here holding this rally in Iowa, in the heart of the United States. This protest is meant to last 2 weeks. Many may support their aims, but police and commuters around the world are bracing for more arrests and more disruption. Simon McGregor-Wood, TRT World.
And for more on this, Michael Jacobs joins us now from London. He's a professor of political economy at the University of Sheffield. Welcome to Money Talks, Michael. Now, this Extinction Rebellion protests come off the back of the Greta Thunberg-inspired Friday school strike protests on the same issue. Do you think that the issue of the climate crisis has reached a critical mass that governments can no longer ignore?
Very good at ignoring it, so I wouldn't say that it's reached a point where government can't ignore it, but I think it's getting there. The very fact that you run this package suggests that it's getting the kind of publicity which will force governments to take notice because it's on the media, people are talking about it. But that isn't enough. And the demand that is being made, which is that governments act, is one that governments have been able to put off for too long. And so we need to find a way of turning this publicity into sufficient pressure that governments actually do act.
Now, governments typically are quick to respond to economic issues. If it's going to hurt the bottom line, chances are politicians will act. So there is an economic argument to addressing the climate crisis, isn't there? What is it? Can you explain it to us?
The argument is twofold. One is, if we don't act on the climate crisis, our economies, our well-being as societies is going to be extremely seriously damaged. It's hard to exaggerate the extent to which climate change, if left unchecked, if temperatures rise to more than 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels, 3 or 4 degrees, which is the course we're on at the moment, how damaging that will be. Many parts of the world will become unlivable. We will have climate migrants moving from one part of the world to another. Agriculture will fail. There will be extreme weather events and so on. So the core economic case is we have to avoid that. That would be an economic disaster. The other side of the argument is that acting will be good for us economically in many ways. So there are many, many jobs in renewable energy, in energy efficiency, in electric vehicles, in public transport, in agriculture, which serves both the planet and the people who work on the land. And there are crucial investments which can generate jobs now. And so this argument is the case for acting now. And then there are arguments of health, for example. If we don't pollute the air, we will live much better. Many cities around the world are polluted now with the consequences of fossil fuels and so on. So the argument is both what we should avoid if climate change were left unchecked, and also the economic and health benefit that we can have now by acting.
Now, you've advised a former British government on issues including the climate crisis, but in your view, what will it take for the UK government, the Australian government, other governments around the world to take this issue more seriously and act with more urgency as these protesters are calling for?
I think there are two big forces now at work. So one is these protests. These are going to last 2 weeks. London is going to be clogged up. Everybody is going to notice this. The politicians who are finding it difficult to get into Parliament and government buildings now, members of the public, as this spreads. And this is now spreading across the world. The second process is the international negotiations process. Next year, in the UK, as it happens, will be the big United Nations Conference on Climate, which has to strengthen the targets that countries announced and declared in Paris, at the Paris Climate Agreement 5 years ago. There's a 5-year cycle instituted in the Paris Agreement for countries to increase their target. So we now need to ramp up the pressure on the international process to ensure that in November next year, November 2020, in Glasgow, in the UK, all countries of the world, because it has to be all countries of the world, and all the big emitters, all the big developing and emerging economies, make much stronger commitments to act on climate than they have done so before, and to do so in the next 10 years. No good just setting targets for 2050. This has got to be targets for 2030, because if we don't act in the next 10 years, we will see all those terrible effects I talked about earlier.
Okay, Michael Jacobs, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you again for your analysis on the program.